I love to say it like this. Welcome to this, our fourth edition of a Balance web event, webinar. This time I'm very pleased to have Elliot and Anais be our guest speakers. I'll say a little bit more about them in a minute. Today may be slightly controversial for some people. So we're discussing the uh, transition from monohull to multi-hull, but also in a way the differences and the experiences from somebody who's recently made that transition in a more permanent way. They will share a lot more with you about the past, the present, and the future. That is our guest speakers here. That's Elliot and Anais from Out of Passage. So, guys, welcome and thank you for being here. Yeah, so as I mentioned, they're from part of the Out of Passage team, which is now growing and offer a very, very cool service offering, which is to basically get aboard a balance, a beautiful balance, and learn about these boats and experience them firsthand. Not only that, but Elliot and Anise also go by the Salty Cruises, and if you haven't followed them on Instagram yet, you have to do that. They are excellent content creators. Coming from a content creator, I must say they are brilliant. So don't miss out on the educational aspect, the just the inspirational aspect of it all. So let me not say too much more about them. I'll let them introduce themselves. Yeah, welcome to the webinar, guys. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Dean.
Thank you, Dean.
Very kind words. I'm just going to actually share my screen and bring up a few slides. It's mostly photos, so don't stress people. It's not too text heavy, just a bunch of pretty pictures. So bear with me 1 second.
While you're setting that up, I want people to leave a comment in so long. Anybody in the audience that is currently on a monohull looking at transitioning, we want to know if you're here. Just give us a thumbs up or that's me. I'm going to mute myself and disappear and let you guys take it away.
Dean, thanks again for the intro. We're really excited to be here. Hopefully we can share some insights and some stories that will help people or inspire people on their own journey. But to kick things off, I guess just a little quick introduction in terms of who we are. As Dean mentioned, we're otherwise known as the Salty Cruisers. Anais here is incredibly creative and loves to pour her heart and soul into putting out content on Instagram and various other platforms. So if we take a bit of a step back, we've been full-time sailing now for 4.5 years. I'm just going to jump to the next slide.
Sorry.
Technical difficulty. Should have stuck to sailing. There we go. Okay. So yeah, in terms of us, we're just coming up on 5 years full-time sailing. We made a pretty big life decision to change things up. So before all of this, we were actually in Singapore working corporate careers, the golden handcuffs as people refer to them. So we both used to work in the tech space, but having spent a number of years in Asia, obviously COVID hit, which, as for a lot of people, prompted some decision making and sort of life reevaluation. So we decided to roll the dice. We quit our jobs and embarked on what we thought would be a 2-year sabbatical. And as mentioned, we're now 5 years in, so it's going pretty strong. If we kind of, I guess, try and summarize who we are, I'd say that we're pretty adventurous people with a real passion for wind sports. Passion is possibly a bit of a light word to use. I think addicted to wind sports might be slightly more accurate. But whether that's sailing or kite surfing or wing foiling or whatever it may be, if there's something, adventurous to go and do in the ocean, then you'll quite probably find us going off and doing it.
Definitely.
In terms of our journey, we've certainly lived through a number of highs and lows. And I'd say we've probably learned more than our fair share of lessons the hard way, which really is, I guess, part of why we're here tonight. We're hoping some of those lessons through storytelling can ultimately help some of you avoid some of the pitfalls that we absolutely fell into headfirst. In terms of our sailing background, so for myself, I was fortunate to sail from a really young age. I spent most of my younger years racing Hobie Cats around, which was a lot of fun. Probably the one boat that you can essentially tip over in four different directions, which I have to say is not always fun, but certainly makes you a good sailor in terms of that sort of base foundation. And then throughout the years, obviously worked up into bigger boats, and then obviously more recently done the years of cruising. And then Anise.
Yeah, on that. So I have a completely different experience than Elliot. I never sailed before. I only started when Elliot put me on the boat and was like, "That's it. We are now living on it, and we're gonna go around the world on it." So I've learned along the way. I did my skipper course, and I just fell in love with it. I just fell in love with the lifestyle. Obviously, like Elliot just said, there's highs and lows, but you just, go with it and you learn a lot about yourself and about a lot of things actually. So, yeah.
Fantastic. In terms of now, as Dee mentioned, we've obviously teamed up with Outer Passage.
Yeah.
Our goal really is just sort of bringing that joy and incredible experience that we've had to as many others as we can, and yeah, try and help some people avoid the harder lessons and learn them in a slightly softer way, perhaps. Alrighty, some more fun. Don't know why we're having trouble flicking through the slides. There we go. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Should definitely stick to sailing. Okay, so about the webinar. So why are we here? Ultimately, we've spent a number of years sailing monohulls, anything from coastal sailing to ocean crossings to all sorts of kind of fun adventures. And we dived in with Outer Passage and recently did a 6,000 nautical mile crossing from Cape Town to Antigua. Bit of a spoiler, it was amazing.
It was great.
But we're really just here to kind of share what that transition was like for us, how kind of our previous sailing experience transitioned into the performance multi-hull space, and then ultimately through the years, certainly in our early years when we were young and naive and less knowing in terms of cruising, we were fortunate to receive a lot of help from the sailing community. And well, I guess we're now in a position where we feel we really would like to try and give back a little bit. So this is also another reason, just in terms of trying to help some of you on your journeys. Okay, can we get that one?
Yep.
There you go. You can stick to the text.
What you learn. Sorry.
Do you want to do this one?
It's okay, don't worry. You go for it.
Okay, so there's 4 key points, right? Essentially, that shift and the transition, how that translates into ocean crossings. We're going to touch on our experience. We'll take you through a few of the situations or lessons that we learned the hard way, and how that has really, I guess, shaped our very specific list of things we look for in a new boat. We're going to try and give you an objective comparison between monohulls and multi-hulls. And then ultimately we'll touch on a few of the kind of unexpected pieces that we came across on that ocean crossing. Okay, the monohull years. Here we go.
Let's do it.
So this is something that has stuck with us for since day one. So when we bought our first boat, having left Singapore, the couple who owned the boat for the 15 years prior, they were super lovely. They were an older couple, and they left us a lovely welcome card on the boat when we first moved on.
With a nice bottle of champagne as well.
And that. But in the card, it wrote this. So it said this: boat life will give you the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Without the lows, you can't really appreciate the highs. Enjoy every part of the journey. And it's something that, as I said, has stuck with us.
Yeah.
And really, they couldn't have been more right. They absolutely, words of wisdom, just shared in a fantastic way. So for us, we definitely had a bumpy start, but equally we had some of the most incredible moments ever. And whilst me saying we had a bit of a bumpy start, or getting into the cruising or sailing lifestyle can sometimes be, challenging or have its kind of harder lessons per se, um, we are absolutely 100% confident that us making that decision to completely change up our lives and dive into the sailing world was without doubt one of the best decisions we've ever made.
Yeah.
I also think we've had a little bit of unluck in terms of some of our journeys. One of them being we got hit by lightning, for example, but we'll get into that later.
We're going to do that now, actually.
Yeah, very true. So on monohulls, what did we do? We've spent a number of seasons in the Mediterranean. We've done transatlantic. We've done a couple of Caribbean seasons. We've been up the US coast. I don't know how many tens of thousands of miles we've done, but it's a chunk. And every step of the way, you're constantly learning, and it's just an incredible journey. Um, if we look back at some of that experience and try and pull out sort of key things or lessons that we've learned, definitely we were tested more than once. As I mentioned, we did get hit by lightning on our previous boat. We were in the Bahamas. It was about 5 days until the end, or the official end of the Caribbean season, when insurance companies dictate you have to be north of Cape Hatteras. We were on anchor and we did get hit by lightning. It was terrifying, to be completely honest with you. Certainly the loudest noise I've ever heard in my life. We did have our boat pup on board, and he went absolutely bonkers, as you would probably expect. But how did that all translate? So we basically got hit by lightning. It fried every piece of electronical equipment that really had any real use. So all of our navigation, all of our engine, electronics, generator, lighting, like anything of real genuine importance that you need to safely and effectively sail a boat in the way that we were sort of typically used to, was no longer working. So on a pretty challenging timeline, as I mentioned, 5 days before the end of the official end of the Caribbean season, we basically were speaking with our insurance company, and we didn't have a lot of options. But the long story short is we ended up taking our old boat, which was a 60-foot Oyster. We sailed that from the northern Bahamas up to Annapolis, where we are now, with no electronics, and it was proper old school sailing. And for those of you who are familiar with oysters, they are incredible in the sense that they are very automated and push button. So from that sense, we had a big shift in terms of what we were used to, and sailing that boat without those electronics was an incredible experience. Looking back,
we've learned a lot, which was really good.
At the time, it was really a challenge. But through doing that, we've realized actually in what you kind of might think is a worst case scenario, what's genuinely important, how we sort of plan or aim to sort of mitigate that going forwards. But yeah, spoiler alert, we obviously did the sail. It was 1,000 miles offshore. It was an incredible experience. Got it into Annapolis, which then ultimately led to a pretty major rebuild. As I mentioned, all the electronics were fried, so we got very, very hands-on and well in depth in terms of boat electronics. But it was about 4 months doing that rebuild. And ultimately, all is well that ended well. Everything was fixed, sailed back down to the Caribbean. And where am I going with that? Yeah.
That's when we had like one of our, what I called our worst passage, and that leads to that point where we're talking about the trust in the boat in tough conditions. I'll let you explain everything because you were the skipper on that trip.
So we fixed the boat and we were basically bound for the Caribbean again. And we got caught in a 3-day gale with 60-knot gusts. We were well offshore when it hit. It was unforecasted, as it typically always is. And ultimately, we spent 3 days with next to no sleep, We were sleeping or resting on the saloon floor because the sea state was really horrendous. We had breaking waves coming into the cockpit, and that really kind of gave us the experience of learning to trust the boat
Yeah.
in horrendous conditions. But also coming away from that is everything comparatively to that experience now seems really very achievable.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of threshold or that experience really kind of gives you, I don't know how to say this, but like a battle hardened kind of approach or stripes or however you want to think about it.
Yeah. We're more confident about ourselves as well, handling a boat in those like tough conditions.
Yeah,
It was a big learn.
character building. Anyway, moving on. There we go. This is, I guess, the bit that you guys are all here for. So
Yeah.
this is the exciting bit. As we mentioned, we were really lucky. We did a Cape Town to Antigua 6,000 nautical mile ocean crossing with Darren and Amanda from Outer Passage.
Yes.
I think they're here tonight. And if we talk about our experience prior to that, so obviously a bunch of monohull experience. For myself, I had sailed performance catamarans on sort of coastal trips previously, but never what I would class as offshore sailing. And then Anais.
And on my side, I only did some coastal sailing, but I never sailed a performance catamaran like offshore. So that was really like a first time for me going from coastal to offshore on a performance catamaran. That was amazing.
We definitely went in confident, but also with a fair amount of reservations about sort of, what we were kind of jumping into.
Yeah.
Luckily,
open-minded.
Yeah, luckily we did go with two absolute legends, Darren and Amanda, who absolutely couldn't have given us a better experience in terms of getting up to speed very quickly on a brand new boat to us. But if we start to jump into the key elements of the two, again, just to touch on this, we're going to try and stay really objective here. And it's also worth noting that this comparison is very holistic. So this is monohulls versus performance catamarans. This isn't a brand versus brand comparison or anything like that. So it's really kind of staying at that, high level.
Yeah, and we are gonna like go to different topics, so comfort and lifestyle at sea, and we're gonna go into different topics too, like subtopics. Sorry.
Yeah. So some obvious things, like you guys are most likely all sailors. Monohulls, they're typically heavier displacement. So if you are going upwind and there is some chop or some sort of smaller sea state, typically a monohull will just punch straight through it. And then the other thing is, which again, because of that keel factor, a beam sea state, which we'll get onto a bit later, isn't particularly concerning. It's definitely uncomfortable in a monohull because you get the roll, but there's no sort of strong or severe consequences really to a beam sea. I guess the worst case scenario is possibly a knockdown, but obviously you've got a really big heavy keel, so you are ultimately going to right. But if we talk about catamarans, the biggest thing for us was the stability. And we're talking about offshore ocean crossings here. We're not talking about flat calm anchorages. So stability, it didn't really matter what the sea state or the weather did. For the most part, there's no real change in terms of how the boat feels and how it moves. Which for us was incredible because having done a bunch of monohull sailing in varying conditions, whether it's big conditions or light wind conditions, there's obviously quite a different feeling that ultimately you get. So that was definitely a big sort of shift, one that you could probably guess. Do you want to talk about galley?
Yeah, let's do it. The difference as well is, and that makes a really big difference, is that when we were on the monohull, I would always do a lot of batch cooking before doing any passages, even if it was 2 or 3 days, or even if it was like a really long passage, I would batch cook everything simply because you don't know what conditions you're gonna have to face. And when you're in the galley, downstairs and it's healing, it can be really challenging, but also actually on the safety side, you can burn yourself. Like it can be really, really tricky. which on the catamaran, you actually don't really need to think of that. We didn't do much batch cooking because in any condition, it's still really flat. So even in terms of the safety, it's actually really, really, really good. So yeah, and that turns also to the third point, eating like you're on anchor. That was amazing. We would be in the middle of the ocean,
Yeah.
going outside in the cockpit and having a lovely dinner or lovely lunch. And honestly, you felt like you were on anchor. It was incredible.
Yeah. Your plate stays where it is. You're not having to hold your plate.
Like the knife doesn't fly or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things as well is talking about sort of living offshore. The communal living
Mhm.
really on a catamaran because you've got that sort of bridge deck, cockpit, saloon area. It's actually fantastically social, but
Oh,
at the
yeah.
same time, you have so much sort of space that you can also still have your privacy,
Yeah.
which when you're doing a long crossing, even with
It's
your best of
important.
best friends, like it's nice just to have a bit of breather and personal space, as well as obviously having that fantastic sort of social side as well.
Absolutely.
Um, Moving on to the activities piece. Personally, I love fishing offshore. Sorry, Darren and Amanda, for trolling all those lines for all those miles. But ultimately, if we talk about activities generally, everything's pretty achievable in terms of keeping your routines offshore. So on anchor, you may have a workout routine or whatever it is you want to typically do. Because of that stability piece, you can actually, without too much challenge, it's really just your own motivation.
Yeah.
You can keep up all your routines. So whether that's you doing a workout mid-ocean, whether that's fishing, and actually landing fish on the back of the boat because obviously the transoms are so open, again, really easy and safe to do so. Um, so that was quite a revelation, just the ability to kind of keep up the routines and the general living on board whilst offshore was just really easy.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really helps when you do a long crossing to be able to have some sort of routine going on because you just feel way better about it. Like your
Yeah,
experience is totally different. That's how I felt it
yeah,
personally.
definitely. Um, the other point really is noise. And this definitely, speaking very openly, honestly, took some getting used to.
Yes.
A performance catamaran is noisier. And for the simple fact, they're lightweight. They don't have as much sort of fluff per se in the interior. There's less sort of sound cushioning. And the reality is they're probably going to go double the speed of your monohull,
Yeah.
which is just a lot of water moving past the hull. So for us, that was really an adjustment just in
Yeah.
terms of getting used to that noise. Um, that being said, it's pretty easy to slow the boat down at night. So should you want to take it a little bit easier or a bit more
Yeah.
relaxing, stick an extra reef or two in, and you can quickly come down to that sort of 8 knot mark that you're probably used to sailing out on a monohull, for example.
Yeah. And you get used to it as well.
Yeah,
Like for
absolutely.
us, the very first days, it was like what, like whoa. But then like as you go along, we just got used to it and it wasn't
Yeah,
like
completely.
something terrible or anything.
Yeah, this is just a transition phase, right?
Yeah.
This is just you learning or getting used to the new boat.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Next topic, performance in schools.
the fun topic. All right.
Big topic.
Let's talk about monohulls first. Obviously, as I mentioned, they're heavy displacement, and because of that, they're also typically quite forgiving. And what do I mean by that? So, if you're sailing along on a monohull, ultimately, if you have too much canvas up, too much sail out, and the wind speed increases, then the reality is the boat's just going to heel more. And that's a pretty big indicator or feedback from the boat that you need to make an adjustment. Um, Ultimately, that is something which certainly in our early years, you just get this kind of sense or feeling, and you're in tune with the boat is probably a really good way of saying
Yeah.
it. The other aspect is, which I alluded to earlier, is if you are caught in heavy weather, there are potentially less severe consequences. And the obvious one really is that beam C piece. On a monohull, because you've got a keel, even if you do suffer a knockdown, it should still right. It should still end up the right way up. Obviously, on a catamaran, you don't have that keel. So if it does go the wrong way up, it will stay the wrong way up. Um, in terms of the biggest shift as well really is the payload, so the amount of weight that you can put on a boat. So if you're on a 30-ton monohull and you put 2 tons of gear on it, it's not really going to have a huge difference. If you're on a 10-ton performance multi-hull and you put 2 tons of gear on it, you're going to notice. So you definitely need to think about if you want to bring the kitchen sink with you, or if you're willing to substitute a few of those extra, pieces of gear that you probably don't need anyway, just to make sure that your performance investment is still moving along quite nicely. Um, let's talk about performance catamarans. So, one of the real standout things when we were sat down putting this together that came to us is we really see the performance catamaran as a fantastic platform to continually grow and build on your sailing skills.
Absolutely.
Now, what do I mean by that? I was trying to think how best to describe this, and I actually came up with an analogy. So bear with me here. My analogy is to cars because I assumed that that would probably be the easiest thing that people can relate to. So if you had, for example, a race car versus a typical normal hatchback car, ultimately, if you wanted to drive that race car at 100% of its potential, you would have to be quite a skilled driver. Now, in this opposite sense, with your hatchback, if you wanted to drive that car fast, it doesn't really go that fast anyway. So realistically, it takes a lot less skill to be able to push a hatchback. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you jump in a race car for the first time and you drive it straight to 100% of its potential. What you're more likely to do is jump in the race car, drive it at, 40 or 50% of its potential, and learn the car, get used to it, dial yourself in, and with time and experience, your skill level will obviously increase, and then you'll be in a position to use more of that race car's potential. The same translates, I think, to performance catamarans. You're not going to jump in your brand new shiny performance catamaran that can do some amazing, awesome, fun speeds and sail it right to the limit. It doesn't make any sense. So just because you're getting on a performance boat that can go fast doesn't mean you always have to go fast.
Yeah.
Now, the second part to my analogy, bear with me, is if you took my race car example and my hatchback car example, if you were to drive that race car at 60% of its potential and at the same time drive the hatchback at 100% of its potential, the reality is because you're pushing that hatchback car to the limit, you're probably going to break something. Whereas if you're obviously only at 60% on your performance race car, you're not really pushing it. And you're probably less likely to break something. But the biggest thing overall is you're actually probably still going just as fast, if not faster, in your 60% race car than you are in your 100%, thrashing hatchback car. So there's also, it's not just about the speed, it's about, the load you're putting on the gear. It's about how you ultimately sail the boat and the longevity. There's a famous old saying, look after the boat and it will look after you. Okay, what was my next point?
More so in the bag, like
Yeah,
relating to your.
that's just to build on in terms of that analogy. So again, you don't have to push the performance boat to its limit. So, for example, we would quite often put an extra reef in at night, if not two. You're slowing the boat down a little bit. You're building a bit more allowance into what the wind speed can pick up to before you need to react, which ultimately means you're having an easier night watch, for example. But the real key here is being able to do consistent, decent daily mileage. So if you're averaging 200 plus miles a day without pushing the boat, you can cover some fantastic distance.
Yeah.
And really, aside from that just being really fun, it just means you get more time to go and do exciting things in wherever it is you're going. Speed, basically, if you have the capability in the boat, you can ride the edge of systems or squalls, for example. And this is what all the race boats do. They'll sit on the outside of a squall, for example, or a system, and they'll ride it from one to the next to the next. And ultimately, because you have a boat that's capable of faster speeds, essentially as the wind speed increases, so does the boat speed. So we frequently in the first week would see a squall coming, and our natural reaction or speed perception based on what we were used to was really far off because we would be reefing early and we would literally just kind of sit there and we'd expect it to hit in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, it doesn't look any closer because ultimately, as I said, the faster the wind speed is, the faster the boat goes. So quite often we would just sit on the edge of the squall, and more often than not, it wouldn't even actually catch up with
Yeah.
us, which was amazing.
Yeah, it really changed the dynamic of
Yeah,
the whole sailing. Honestly, it
yeah,
was incredible.
yeah. The other example is we had a symmetrical spinnaker,
Yeah.
which is pictured just below. It's the big white puffy sail that you can see on the bottom row. And actually, as we got confident with the boat, and obviously this is in the daytime when there are people awake, so it's safe to do so. But we actually kept the boat, the spinnaker, up in 30 knot squalls, just because in a 30 knot squall, the reality is you're doing 15 to 18 knots. So your apparent wind is so low. Yes, we're hand steering. Obviously, you're absolutely dialed in to make sure nothing goes wrong when we're doing it in conditions with people around to make sure you can react should something else change. But really, that is why I'm sharing that is it basically just kind of gives you an example of what these boats are capable of. Which, yeah, it never ceased to put a pretty big grin on our faces. Middle of the ocean, 30 knot squall with a spinnaker up, just absolutely ripping along. So yeah, great fun. Do
Absolutely.
you want to do the gymnastics?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can guys see it on the pictures that we've put out there. On our sailboat, we were doing a lot of like wing on wing setup to sail downwind just because we had more canvas and it was just easier and we would just go faster. We were doing this by doing basically a workout. Like we had to take that pole, put it up. I mean, it was like a really big workout and really tiring. And if you have a good sea state, it's fine. But when the sea state was challenging, like it would be actually quite difficult. So when we sailed with the catamaran, we didn't have to do that. And that was absolutely fantastic because it's more safe, it's way easier, and you just have a massive canvas anyway because the boat is large. So yeah, that was a big revelation for us.
Just using the beam of a catamaran to essentially have really wide sheeting angles was just fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, any of you who have spent time offshore on a monohull, yeah, bouncing around trying to rig up a pole, will know exactly what we mean there.
Yeah. Okay, the practical advantages. So yeah, the very important, because I'm in charge of that most of the time, it's the provisioning. So when we were on our monohull, it was quite a challenge, I would think, or maybe a puzzle to do provisioning, just because I would have to go in the bilges and basically put all of those like cane and every like food and different things in a way, so in such a way that when we're gonna heal, it's actually gonna stay where it is and not create any damage, or like create a really big mess in terms of food. So that was quite a puzzle and quite challenging. Now on the catamaran, you don't have anything like this anymore because it's again it's very flat, so you're not gonna heal to 30 degree or something with like things flying around and making noise. And so yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the very very plus on that.
Yeah, no more opening the fridge on the wrong tack and
Yes.
having to
Oh my God.
play the Jenga juggling game as you catch everything that falls out.
That was, yes. So on that, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
anyway,
all
the
good fun.
second point is seasickness. So I am normally very seasick, which I know for some people it might be surprising because we are a sailor and full-time live aboard. But guess what? Like I was seasick quite a lot of time with the monohull. Now with the catamaran, it was a completely different motion. And honestly, it was a really big change for me. Bear in mind that when we had the monohull, I tried everything. So I've tried the patch behind the ears, the weird goggles that you can find, the wristbands. Like I did a lot of things and it wasn't working. And
Therapy.
yeah, hypnotherapy as well. But then on the catamaran, it was amazing. I felt so good. And it might sound like nothing, but it's actually, it makes a big impact on the team and the crew in general, because when you have a crew down for seasickness, all the other crew have to like take over, people's watch basically. And in this scenario, it was brilliant to be able to not have any of that. And no one was really too tired because they had to look after someone or anything like this. So it was really, for me, a really big, big plus.
Yeah.
And the reactivity, you might jump on that?
I touched on this earlier, but essentially it's just having a bit less sail out. So especially at night. So we would put in an extra reef or two, and all that translates to is the wind speed can increase by so much more before the boat is actually in a position where it's overpowered. So because it obviously has that performance, and because it ultimately is just going to go faster if you're off the wind, in terms of your apparent wind speed, then you can really build in a lot more, what's the right word I'm thinking of? A lot more, not variance, but a threshold, like the amount the wind can increase versus actually needing to react to something quickly, is very different.
You create time, basically.
Yeah, you give yourself time. Alrighty.
Challenges and magical moments. Yes, so the challenges and the magical moment. So I think one of the challenge, and I think you'd agree with me on this one, is when we start sailing on the performance catamaran on the Balance, we had like what I would call like a learning / adapting kind of period.
Yeah.
So we basically walk in with our monohull vision, our monohull lens, our monohull experience. And so there were quite like an adaptation, I'll say, that we didn't struggle, but like we were trying to really like compare the different process and setups, which it's a totally different boat. So by doing this, we weren't helping ourselves. So we had to like put this in aside and really come as a like blank page, basically, which we finally did, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. The
Yes.
beam seas piece, so I alluded to this earlier, right? Obviously, monohulls typically are going to come back up the right way. If they get knocked over, catamarans will not. So naturally going into that, you're in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, this boat can capsize. The reality is we never even got close to feeling unsafe. We were really pleasantly surprised once we got over our own psychological fear in the first few days, how stable and safe these boats felt in any kind of beam sea state. They just feel planted. And obviously there's different sailing techniques and things you can do that obviously help how that boat can deal with and react to a beam sea state. But yeah, certainly in the first few days, it was, nerve-wracking, but we quickly got over that. So yeah, it was a nice surprise.
Yeah. And in terms of the magical moment, so obviously it's basically a different world. The boat is totally different. The comfort, the speed, the livability, the space that you have on the Balance was like a really amazing thing for us. So yeah, we definitely love multihulls now. Yeah. The other thing, and I know it sounds a bit silly maybe, but at the end of our trip, we had dolphins under the trampoline, and we literally laid down on the trampoline, and we could see the dolphins like below us. We were just above them, so it almost feel we were with them, which on the monohull you also have the dolphins, but you kind of go at the bow and you can see them, but you're not really with them. And that experience for me was it like I can't even describe it. It was incredible. Like, I mean, I love dolphins, so but yeah, it was
Yeah, it was
magic.
really magical.
Yeah. Now the big one.
Drum roll, please. Okay. So this is obviously an age-old debate.
Yeah.
People always want to know which is better, a monohull, a catamaran. And my response to that is ultimately it depends what you want to do.
Yeah.
Boats are really personal decisions, and there are so many factors that come into someone making a decision on a boat, whether that's the price, the size, where you want to use it, how you want to use it, who you want to use it with. There are so many factors. And I really feel it's important to say this is if someone's in a position to get out on the water on any boat, do it. Like we would only ever encourage you to get out on the water on any boat that is good for you. There's no perfect boat, there's no right boat. It really is just an incredible lifestyle and world that we are very lucky to be in. And ultimately, if you have some means or way of getting into this world or experiencing part of this world in any form, I would do nothing but encourage you to do that. It's incredible. If we talk about our experience, based on our lens, what we look for in a boat based on how and where and who we use a boat with. Ultimately, this is where we've kind of given these two, I guess, buckets of points, really. And Monohulls definitely gave us a whole load of resilience. It taught us some fantastic seamanship. The fact that they're obviously payload insensitive is incredible because you can pack the kitchen sink, and for us, that is essentially more water toys than you can probably imagine. And then ultimately, certainly, I think for Anise in her early sailing years, that sort of forgiving and clear feedback you get from a monohull, the safety of a keel, the boat talks to you in a really obvious way. I think that was a really good experience just for her to be able to get comfortable with the foundation of sailing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, flipping into the performance
Catamaran.
Performance catamaran.
Multihull.
Thank you. Ultimately, we really view this as an incredible platform for someone who wants to go off and grow their sailing skills. That doesn't mean that you can't do it on a monohull. Again, like it's whichever boat works for you. But for us, the speed, the stability, the usable space, offshore versus on anchor, same thing. The lower loads, etc. That really is quite key. I will touch on the lower loads piece in just a little bit of detail. I probably should have put this in the performance piece, but one of the pieces that we really kind of felt stood out was if we take again a 30-ton monohull, it's going to need X amount of sail area to do, let's say for easy numbers, 8 knots. If you took a 15-ton catamaran, it's going to need half the amount of sail area to do the same speed. So naturally, those loads are a lot lower. And that was a real interesting thing for us, like just moving around the boat, working with, different head sails. Like for us, that was really interesting transition. Definitely. And then ultimately coming back to how we use a boat, as we've kind of keep mentioning, we're big into the water sports. So for us, having a platform that allows us to launch those ridiculous toys and go off and do those incredible kite surfing sessions or wing foiling or e-foiling or lobster hunting or paddleboard, like whatever it is, like we're up for any kind of sporty adventure. So having a boat that enables us to access the water in a really easy way.
And safe way as well.
And safe way for us and for our guests, again, is a really, critical thing that we always look for.
Absolutely.
Okay. What do we value in a boat now?
It's a brief of...
It's just an overview. Again, it comes down to personal preference, but for us, we would choose strength over speed. If you can choose both, I'd highly recommend both. Speed is fun. But in all our years, the ocean always wins. And really, you just have to go with it. So strength is a real key thing. having been hit by lightning, we would always choose simplicity over automation.
Definitely.
And also having built-in redundancy is really critical.
Yeah.
It can just get you out of jams or difficult situations quite quickly. We look for a boat that really is, I use the word easy to maintain. That probably isn't the right phrase, but we want a boat that really is reliable, just because that means you're spending less time working on the boat and more time, in our case, going off wing foiling or
do your adventure or
whatever it is you're
anything
into
like
do. Yeah.
do.
And then protection from the elements. We always kind of had this view that you really only needed protection from the elements if you were going to go and sail off into the Arctic, for example, like cold weather, iceberg sailing. But actually, having spent numerous seasons in the Caribbean, UV is pretty strong, and the
UV is
heat really
quite-
gets to you. So actually, protection for us is no matter where you're sailing. If you have the
really
ability to get
important.
out of the elements, it's really key for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And also,
Yeah, a few more things. Again, because of what we like to do with the boat, we want to be able to get into those remote anchorages. They're some of the most breathtaking experiences we've ever had, which you can probably see in some of the drone shots we've used. But yeah, having a shallow draft is amazing. We were lucky on our previous monohull.
Yeah.
We did have a lifting keel, so that really gave us access to a lot of places. But obviously, performance multi-hulls, generally speaking, have pretty low draft, shallow draft, I should say. Usable space is really key. For us, a big monohull versus a medium-sized catamaran, the catamaran does feel bigger.
Well, you have two hulls, right?
You have two hulls. Yeah, there's a lot more space. So that definitely helps. We've talked about storage, whether that's provisioning or whether that's for just accessing, I don't know, head sails offshore, whatever it may be. But definitely having a boat that has sensible storage and placement of that storage is really key.
It makes a big difference.
And then a platform for toys, which we've
about.
talked a whole lot about.
What's next?
Second drum roll, please. Here we go. Okay. So as we talked about, we're super excited. We've teamed up with Outer Passage, and we are hopefully going to be hosting a whole bunch of you guys on some incredible weeks on board Pressure Drop. Basically a brand new Balance 526. We're going to be spending our time in the Caribbean and also the Mediterranean. And if we were to try and summarize what we're offering or what we want to kind of give people in terms of that experience, it's really the coastal and offshore hands-on sailing and coaching. So whether you want to go and do a adventure sailing around Caribbean islands, or if you want to go and do a transatlantic, we'll be super excited to go and do any of those things with you. Water sports is our passion, as we have made it pretty clear. So we'd love to go off and do some kite surfing safaris with you, or if you want to come and learn how to wing foil, or go and catch your own lobsters, or go and hike some remote trails. We're up for all of the adventures. And ultimately, we're big fans of getting to some pretty remote places. So if we can take you to some beautiful anchorages and go and do some off-grid exploration, then yeah, we're all keen. Righty. The Q&A. So before we jump into this, if people have questions, then please put them in the chat now.
Yeah.
Don't be shy. There's no stupid questions.
No.
We'll do our best to answer them. No promises. But we thought we would start off with a couple of sort of classic questions that we have been asked quite a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, over to you, Anise. What surprised you most when switching from a monohull to a multi-hull?
Yeah, so for me, it was the stability at sea, basically. I knew before to go on the catamaran that it was stable, more stable than a monohull. But when we started to get some speed and be out in the ocean, it was still very stable. And that was a massive surprise for me, because I genuinely thought that it was going to be a bit not healing, but like more moving,
Yeah.
But no, I could leave my bottle of water on the table and it wouldn't move. So, and we were doing like 15 knots or something.
Yeah.
So it was incredible, and that was a really big surprise for me.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Like just to staying in there, but you're in the ocean
Yeah.
doing 50 knots.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest surprise was the noise levels. I completely underestimated how much water is moving past the hull when you're doing 15 to 20 knots. So yeah, I just completely underestimated it. But yeah, I'm happy to sacrifice a little bit of noise for all that additional speed.
Definitely.
It's a no-brainer.
Um,
Okay. Can you really sail performance catamaran short-handed as a couple? Uh, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
You can sail them single-handed. Obviously, it
Yeah.
takes process and you need to know the boat, but yeah, these boats are really set up in such a way that they are very usable
Yeah.
in all conditions. So yes, absolutely. And then Anise, what advice would you give someone who might be hesitating about making the leap?
Oh, I would say just go for it.
Yeah.
Just 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 go and try it out. So I'm going to tell you a story. When we were in Singapore about to go into boat life, Elliot was like, "Look, we go and try. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, and it's fine. We can find another project. Now, if you love it, it's going to be like the biggest change in your life, and you will never regret it."
Yeah.
And honestly, look where I am right now.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I would just say go and try, see it, figure it out, see what you like, what you don't like, and yeah,
Yeah.
just go for it.
So I've got an interesting point on this.
Mm.
I would encourage people, if you're really genuinely hesitating about this, just get out there in some way and get some experience. And if you think it could be for you and you want to build your confidence or your skills, this isn't a plug, by the way, but I would really encourage you to go out and do some proper training. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, you have to go and do a specific piece of training, whether
Mhm.
you want to go and do some RYA courses or your ASA, or if you want to come and do some bespoke, stuff with us, for example, the hands-on experiential piece, I would really encourage you to go and do the training because
Yeah.
it'll do two things. One, it'll give you a really good platform to learn the skills that you need to do without any risk. And secondly, it'll also stop you from making any what I would call expensive mistakes.
Mhm.
And really, if you can reduce your risk and remove that piece of ultimately of making some expensive mistakes, the longevity and that investment really into yourself and your skills, it'll help you transition into this life so much easier
Yeah.
ultimately.
I would add a third point to that, which
Yeah.
is confidence building, because when I started on boats, I wasn't confident at all. And by going and doing it, I just built my confidence massively, and now it's way better. But on social media, for example, I often have people actually reaching out to me about confidence, and it also like going to try and do some coaching with us, for example, like it will build your confidence massively, and it will help you for like the future project that you might have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Completely agree. Right, let's try and pull up your
Wow, we've talked
questions.
too much.
Um,
I can hear Dean.
I'm back in, so I'll lead you guys, so you don't have to worry about that.
Thank
So
you.
let's go with the first one.
Thanks, Dean.
Yeah, yeah. So the first one from Kendrick is any plans to do transatlantic westbound after your eastbound crossing in 2026?
Ooh.
Nice question.
And the second question, unrelated, but we can just go answer both, is how's life with the dog on a balance?
Okay. I'll take the first part and then
I'll
Ace can
take the
take the
second
second
part.
part. Yes, Kendrick, we will be doing a westbound transatlantic, so stay tuned.
Okay. That was
Uh,
it.
yeah, yeah, right,
Yeah.
it's going to happen. And then, yeah, in terms of what's it like living with a dog on board a
Yes.
balance,
So, so far, North, our dog, hasn't been yet on the balance. He's been once or twice with Amanda and Darren when they had their previous boat. He loved it. Now, North loved every boat, to be really honest with you. He could be sailing and around the water, and that just that's it. That is what he needs, really.
yeah,
So it's going to be absolutely amazing. The other thing I would add, sorry, is that If he could do it on a monohull, he can definitely do it on a multi-hull. Just because of the stability piece, it's better for him, but also the space and everything else. So there is a lot of positives about multi-hull for pets as well.
Yep, definitely. Hopefully that answers your
Yeah,
question.
hopefully.
Cool. Yeah. Next one is any tender recommendations for catamaran, hard shell versus inflatable?
Ooh.
I'll comment on that too, but I'll let you, if you guys
Yeah.
have something, go for it first.
Yeah. We view a tender as the means or gateway to adventure. So for us, I would always choose an inflatable
Yeah.
aluminium bottomed rib.
Mm.
We've used high fields, but there are obviously plenty of other competitive brands.
Mhm.
Um, I would personally never go with a hard dinghy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'd also would encourage you to get a decent sized dinghy. So on pressure drop, we have a 3.6 meter, I don't know what that translates to in feet, sorry. A 3.6 meter dinghy,
Mhm.
and that is great for 6 people plus some gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, cool. I agree with the size thing. That you if you've got the space and you can carry that load, you know you might as well have that ability to have a bigger. I've also obviously jumping on and off so many different boats for balance. I've experienced both the soft and the hard, the inflatable and the hard shell. And there's definitely pros and cons to both. I do like the way the hard shell ones, especially the new SC SUV in that they're very stable. I find that when you're trying to hoist up from being on the boat and trying to stable and pin on, they're very stable, and you can kind of stand on the edge of the boat without feeling like you're going to tip over. So there's some good advantages to that, but then you're always fending off from the boat, right? Yes, it does have you're actually protecting the catamaran, not the tender, because they're rock solid. Whereas when you're on the soft ones, you can kind of just bounce off. You're obviously still trying to avoid that, but it does make it a lot easier to come and go in slightly more challenging conditions, at least, should I say. Those are just the two things that I want to add. That this, for me personally, it hasn't been that one is outright better than the other, but
Yeah.
there are definitely pros and cons to both. Yeah.
Yeah. Wise
Nice.
words.
Then from Robert, says, I wasn't clear, or I think it wasn't clear. Do you sail wing on wing and just not need a pole? So just commenting on how wing on wing works with a catamaran, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't sail wing and wing with a catamaran. If we were essentially running dead downwind, we would have a symmetrical spinnaker, which I'd highly recommend. But otherwise, we would be sailing angles because you can obviously build your apparent with an asymmetrical spinnaker, which is quite coincidentally in our background photo. And building your apparent ultimately means your VMG is going to be higher sailing those angles anyway. So no, we didn't sail wing on wing.
On the passage I did just a little bit earlier this year, I could say exactly the same as what Elliot just said. It was we had the option to, but with the ASIM, we basically just chose to do a lot of jibing, which was good practice for us. Didn't have to do it that way, but yeah, it's fun to sail faster in the day. And then the same thing, we put a reef in at night or that and just slowed down a bit. But we're always chasing that sort of 60 to 70% of the boat's capability on a passage. You're never really trying to push past the 80, but you're still getting a lot of speed at 60% of these boats' capability. So
That's to be
um,
happy. If
next
if you
one.
wanted the easier life and you wanted to sail dead downwind, I'd highly recommend a symmetrical spinnaker.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah. Next one is how big of a jump in terms of handling and space from, say, a 440 to a 502, trying to balance a boat as a couple, what a boat a couple can sail, but also have two other couples as occasional guests.
I think generally speaking, you or most people typically always want the bigger boat. I would say. I can't speak specifically in terms of the any hands-on experience between those two models. I don't know if Dean has something that you want to chip in there, but yeah, holistically or generally speaking, I would say I've always looked at additional waterline as a positive thing. And ultimately, if you just have that extra space, it just means, you're never not going to want it necessarily. Yeah, doesn't mean you have to fill it either.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Is that I mean, specifically now, if the question's around balance boats, I'll mainly only comment on that, is all of them are designed to be home to a couple, and all of them are designed to have guests. So it's just a matter of deciding on your where you're going to sail, how far, what your budget is, all of those considerations of how much additional space you can afford yourself, and a bunch of other things. But it's basically you can get the same thing on all of them. It's only from the kind of 580 upwards where you're considering um, different configurations for more people, even though you can sail them single-handedly, if you really want to, and is entirely possible. But that's when you're looking at space for more guests in comfort, right? To really have that. What Elliot and Annie said earlier was like you have your privacy, but you also have that social aspect. And the bigger the boat goes, the more that amplifies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither are going to be a bad decision.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
put it this way.
Even the smallest current 442s are incredibly spacious as boats go. I was reminded throughout your presentation of my background is dinghy, same as you, like dinghies to Hobie cats, and then I did a big jump to these boats. And my experience of monohulls has only ever been coastal. So it's like, yeah, I've only ever been spoiled by the luxury of these catamarans for the
Not a bad
last,
thing.
15 years of my life. I've been exposed to these boats. So yeah, they're pretty comfortable from space point of view.
Tough life, eh? Someone has to do it.
Um, what have we got here? That's just a thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna say that too. Thank you to you guys. Thanks for that.
Thanks for coming along.
No, it's been good. I've just got a couple more thanks. Yeah, no, that's it. That's it from
Okay.
everybody.
The
So
last
I
and
preach.
final slide in that case, Dean, sorry, is coming back to the quote that we have kept with us. So this is, if there's any one piece that has carried us through, it really is boat life is the highest of highs, but the lowest of lows. If you're willing to embrace both, it will be the most rewarding adventure of your life. So yeah, in response to your guys' thank you so much for you all for joining us. We hope that you found it informative or slightly entertaining. But yeah, we would love to see you guys out there on the water. And if there's an opportunity to host you on Pressure Drop, please do reach out. We would absolutely love to have you guys on board for some adventures.
Definitely. Meet you in person as well. That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
we're at the Annapolis Boat Show in a few days. So
I was gonna say that one
if you
last
guys are
plug
there,
here.
then please come and say hi. Don't be shy. We'd love to meet you guys. So yeah, just give us a poke
Everyone
or
would be there.
yeah, give us a call, and we'll be happy to have a chat with you about all things sailing.
Great stuff. Well, perfect place to end it. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening too, and stay in balance.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,
Ciao.
guys.